taken from everything. I'm not happy with all my mistakes.
The man who could fix anything couldn't fix himself. Behind every car he built was a piece of pain he never talked about. At 54, bad Chad Hiltz finally told the truth, and it's more shocking, more heartbreaking, and more human than anyone ever imagined. But before he ever found peace, before the cameras, the fame, and the noise, there was just a man in a cold garage, trying to build something that would last longer than pain. Before the world knew bad Chad Hiltz, there was just Chad, a quiet dreamer in a cold Nova Scotia garage, turning rust into resurrection. Where others saw junk, he saw a promise.
I guess on the first episode I said, my cars are going to shape the world.
Every spark from his torch was a heartbeat, proof that beauty could still rise from what life tried to throw away. He wasn't handed success, he built it with cracked hands and sleepless nights. Winters were harsh, money scarce, but giving up was never an option. Each car he shaped carried a piece of his own struggle. The dents and imperfections weren't flaws, they were memories. Behind the confidence was a man few understood. He could rebuild anything mechanical, but not the parts of himself that were broken. So he hid in the noise of the workshop, where grinding steel drowned out the silence inside him. To the world, he looked unstoppable. But every creation was really a confession, a search for peace disguised as a masterpiece. And though he didn't know it yet, that search would test him more than fame, fortune, or failure ever could. Because success doesn't always arrive as salvation. Sometimes it arrives as a test. In those early years, the dream burned hotter than the metal he shaped. Chad wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing freedom. Every spark that lit the garage was a small rebellion against everything that tried to hold him back. He worked alone through long, frozen nights, no crew, no sponsors, just a man and his imagination. The sound of the grinder became his heartbeat, the flames, his company. Each car he built wasn't just survival, it was proof. Proof that he could turn pain into purpose, that he could make something beautiful out of what the world threw away. But passion has a price. The same fire that gave him life began to consume him. He pushed harder, slept less, and started building not just for himself, but to prove everyone wrong. And it worked. The whispers turned into headlines. The small-town builder became a legend. But when the spotlight finally found bad Chad Hiltz, it didn't bring peace. It brought pressure, and the quiet man who once built to escape suddenly found himself trapped by his own success. Because before the fame came the fire, and before peace came the burn. Fame doesn't arrive quietly, it explodes. When bad Chad Customs hit television, the world finally saw the small-town genius who could turn scrap into art. Overnight, Chad Hiltz became a symbol of raw creativity and rebellion. For a while, it felt like the world had finally caught up to his dream. But fame isn't free. The cameras wanted a show, not a soul. What they captured wasn't always the man, it was the myth. Each build came with pressure, deadlines, and eyes watching his every move. The garage that once gave him peace became a stage. Every spark, every weld had to look perfect for TV. And slowly, the art that once healed him began to hurt him. People saw success, they didn't see the sleepless nights, the isolation, or the growing weight on his shoulders. He had wanted to be seen his whole life, but now, under the lights, he felt invisible. The louder the applause got, the quieter his peace became. And deep down, he knew storms don't come from outside, they start from within. Behind every storm, there's someone trying to hold it all together. For Chad, that person was Jolene McIntyre, his partner, his anchor, and the heart that kept the chaos from consuming him. She wasn't just the woman beside him on screen, she was the one who saw the man behind bad Chad, the raw, restless soul who built not for fame, but for meaning. Together, they were electric. She understood his madness, matched his ambition, and shared his dream. Fans saw chemistry, a love story made for TV, but what they didn't see were the cracks forming beneath the surface. The pressure of cameras changes everything. Suddenly, their love wasn't private anymore. It was packaged, edited, and broadcast to millions. Every smile had to be perfect, every disagreement tucked away behind the noise of production. But when the lights went off, the silence between them grew heavier. Jolene believed in him, but she also saw the toll. The sleepless nights, the perfectionism. The way he'd chase a build until his hands bled just to quiet the voice inside. She stood by him when the world demanded more, but even loyalty has limits when love starts to fade into survival. There were moments of tenderness, laughter in the shop, quiet drives after long days, the kind of love that felt unbreakable. But fame is a thief. It steals time, it steals patience, and eventually, it steals peace. What began as a partnership of equals started to feel like a balancing act. Chad building for the cameras, Jolene holding the weight of what fame wouldn't let them show. And when the cracks finally gave way, it wasn't dramatic, it was quiet. No shouting, no headlines, just two people who had given too much of themselves to the dream they built together. For Chad, the loss cut deep. He could rebuild cars, but not hearts. He could create masterpieces from rust, but love was never something he could weld back together. And when she walked away, the noise stopped, but so did the warmth. The silence that followed wasn't peace, it was the sound of everything breaking at once. Every man has a limit, a moment when the noise gets too loud, the weight too heavy. For Chad, that moment came quietly. No explosions, no breakdown caught on camera, just silence. After years of pushing, pretending, and performing, he woke up one morning and felt nothing. The garage that once felt alive now felt hollow. The spark that once roared inside him had dimmed. He had built his entire life on movement, on creation, but now, even that couldn't save him. The fame, the pressure, the heartbreak, it all caught up. He started showing up less, speaking less, disappearing into long nights alone with his thoughts. He wasn't running a business anymore, he was running from himself. And that's when he realized something terrifying. He had become a stranger in the very world he created. The show, the fame, the recognition, none of it could fill the silence Jolene left behind, or the peace he'd been chasing since that first spark years ago. It wasn't the fall that broke him, it was realizing he'd been falling for years. When the cameras stopped rolling, the world fell silent. The shop that once buzzed with voices, deadlines, and production chaos now echoed with stillness. For the first time in years, there was no schedule, no approval to chase, no one watching. Just Chad alone with the hum of a flickering bulb, the smell of rust, and the ghosts of what used to be. He went back to the same old garage in Nova Scotia, the one that started it all. The concrete was cracked, the air cold, but it felt real, honest. This was where he first learned that broken things could still be beautiful. And now, he was trying to learn that again, not with cars, but with himself. He picked up the torch, not for the cameras this time, but for clarity. Each weld became a wordless conversation between the man he was and the man he wanted to become. The noise of grinding steel replaced the noise in his mind, and slowly, the fire began to burn in a different way, softer, calmer, more human. The fame had left scars, but the silence started to heal them. He realized he didn't miss the crowds or the lights. He missed the simplicity, the feeling of working for something that meant more than applause. So, he began to rebuild his life, the same way he built his cars piece by piece, line by line, not rushing, not pretending. There were nights when the loneliness hit hard, when memories of Jolene and the chaos of the show replayed in his head like unfinished footage. But this time, he didn't run from it. He sat with it. Because pain, when faced, starts to lose its power. He'd always believed creation was about showing the world what he could do. Now he understood creation was about finding peace with what he couldn't change. The shop lights glowed dimly against the frost-bitten windows as he finished another quiet build. No cameras, no deadlines, just peace, the kind that doesn't shout but whispers. Because sometimes, the road back isn't about returning to where you started, it's about finally being ready to stand still. Time has a way of turning pain into perspective. In the quiet of that small-town garage, Chad began to see his past differently, not as failure, but as a teacher. Every broken relationship, every sleepless night, every car that almost beat him, it all had a purpose. He realized he wasn't building machines all those years, he was building himself. The rust, the scars, the imperfections, they were lessons in disguise. He learned that success means nothing without peace. That forgiveness isn't about the people who hurt you, it's about freeing yourself from carrying them. And that sometimes, the hardest rebuild you'll ever face is the one inside your own heart. Because every masterpiece starts as something broken, and the same was true for him. For years, Chad had lived as a brand. Bad Chad Hiltz, the TV rebel, the car whisperer, the man who could turn junk into gold. But when the noise faded, he realized the brand had swallowed the man. So he began again quietly, intentionally. No press, no network deadlines, no cameras waiting for drama. Just him, the tools, and the simple joy of creation. He stopped building for approval and started building for peace. The garage, once a stage, became a sanctuary again. He took on small projects not for fame, but for love of the craft. Old friends dropped by, local kids watched him work, and for the first time in years, he wasn't performing, he was present. He taught others what the cameras never captured: patience, purpose, pride in imperfection, because real art isn't about attention, it's about honesty. The man who once welded through anger now worked with calm hands. He didn't need validation, contracts, or applause. He just needed to know that what he built meant something, even if no one else ever saw it. Bad Chad Hiltz stopped rebuilding cars for the world and started rebuilding himself for life. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, it's a battle. And for Bad Chad Hiltz, it was the hardest rebuild of his life. He could fix cars, restore metal, turn decay into beauty, but fixing the wreckage inside himself, that took years. At first, he resisted it. He'd tell himself he didn't care, that he'd moved on, that the past was behind him. But deep down, every insult, every betrayal, every piece of love that slipped away, it all stayed with him. It haunted him like the hum of an engine that never shuts off. There were nights when he'd walk into that empty shop and just stand there, staring at the cars he'd built. Each one held a memory, some sweet, some painful. The car he built when he and Jolene still believed in forever. The one he finished right after the show ended just to prove he still could. Every machine was a story, and every story carried a scar. But slowly, something shifted. He began to see that forgiveness wasn't weakness, it was freedom. It wasn't about saying, "It's okay." It was about saying, "I'm done letting this control me." He started forgiving Jolene, not to erase what happened, but to thank her for teaching him what love can cost. He forgave the industry, not because it treated him right, but because holding on to anger only kept him in the past. And finally, he forgave himself for the mistakes, the pride, the moments he lost sight of who he was. Each step toward forgiveness felt like taking off another layer of armor. He didn't need to fight anymore. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. The peace he found didn't come with applause or recognition. It came in the small things, in the quiet hum of a welder, in the laughter of friends who stuck around when the fame faded, in the sound of rain hitting the old tin roof of his shop. That's where he finally understood what peace really is. It's not a destination, it's a decision. A daily choice to stop reliving the pain and start rewriting the story. Fans still ask him if he misses the cameras. He smiles and says, "Not really. I've already built what I needed to build." Because forgiveness, for him, wasn't about others knowing he moved on. It was about knowing he could finally breathe without the past weighing on his chest. He learned that sometimes peace doesn't come after a victory. It comes when you stop fighting battles that were over years ago. And when he finally looked around that quiet garage, surrounded by the things he created with his own two hands, he felt something he hadn't felt in decades: stillness. No noise, no pain, just peace. Because the greatest masterpiece Bad Chad Hiltz ever built was learning how to let go. Every man leaves something behind, a name, a story, a spark. For Bad Chad Hiltz, that spark isn't just the cars he built. It's the spirit he carried, the belief that beauty can rise from the broken and peace can be found in the ruins. He didn't build for fame, he built to feel alive. And maybe that's why his story hits so deeply, because it reminds us that even the strongest people are still searching for peace in their own way. Chad's legacy isn't measured in TV ratings or magazine covers. It's in the small-town kid who picks up a wrench and believes he can create something out of nothing. It's in the people who watched him fall and rise again, realizing that broken doesn't mean finished, it just means you're still becoming. He used to think peace was something he'd find at the end of the road. Now he knows it's something you build, one quiet moment at a time. In the glow of that small garage, surrounded by steel and silence, he finally learned that peace doesn't mean the noise is gone, it means you've learned how to live through it. The world still calls him Bad Chad, but the truth is, he's no longer bad, and he's no longer searching. He's a man who faced his demons, made peace with his scars, and turned them into art. The restless soul who once tried to outrun his past now walks beside it. Not as an enemy, but as a reminder of everything he survived. And maybe that's what true legacy is. Not the things we build, but the peace we leave behind when we're finally done building. At 54, Bad Chad Hiltz didn't just find peace, he became it. In the end, peace didn't find him, he built it, piece by piece, the same way he built everything else in his life. Not from perfection, but from pain. Bad Chad's story isn't about fame or fortune or even forgiveness. It's about the courage to stop running and finally face the mirror. He taught us that no matter how loud life gets, there's power in starting over, in finding purpose in the silence and meaning in the scars. Because if a man who spent his life surrounded by noise could find peace in the quiet, maybe we all can too. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe for more untold journeys, stories of loss, love, and the fight to find peace when the world won't stop spinning.